Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 604. Releasing May 10 in theaters across the US and on digital is Last Stop in Yuma County, a neo-noir thriller that stars Jim Cummings as a lowly salesman who finds himself in the middle of a hostage situation in a desert-set diner on a dusty, hot day. Also starring Richard Brake, Jocelyn Donahue, and Faison Love. Last Stop in Yuma County is a beautifully written and crafted crime thriller that engages with its escalating tension and stellar performances. And joining me now on the podcast is a writer and director of Last Stop in Yuma County, Mr. Francis Galluppi. Francis, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. It's remarkable to me how when I've always talked to indie filmmakers and such, how the need to find location first is paramount, and a lot of times location can affect the way a film is made.
Totally.
In this case, we're talking about a place called the Four Acres. It's like a set in Lancaster, California.
Uh-huh.
This is a place that you came across, and it was something that really kind of inspired you to write this movie. What was it about that place, this kind of like diner set, which has been used in movies before, to really inspire you to make the movie that we people are going to be watching very soon?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I didn't really know it was an overused location. I mean, now I see it in commercials and TV shows and movies, but when I first came across, I was like, oh my God, what a, like nobody knows about this place, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And um, I think the thing that first attracted me though was it was it's period. I mean, I
Mhm.
always am writing period pieces, so it's like, oh, cool, I can write like a dusty 70s crime thriller in here. So that was the thing that like really attracted me to it, and just like the isolated nature of it. And then I ended up speaking with at the time I was going to make like a very micro budget version of this film, and we got a pretty good rate. Like I think I talked to the guy about getting like a student uh discount or something. So, but yeah, I think it was like the I knew I could write a period piece, and I really love the aesthetic of like those 1970s crime thrillers. So I think that was it for me.
To make the set your own, you and your production designer really did a really great job here, because you said before this was a location that's been seen before, movies like Identity, other films as well. Um, but when you watch it in your movie, you can really feel that kind of lived in, AC's not working, kind of like family restaurant kind of vibe that you really were looking for in there. How long does it take for yourself and your production designer to really come up with the stuff that you need to make not only the location your own, but really to be able to benefit your film, because a lot of the film is shot within this diner.
Yeah, it was just a lot of conversations and references, and a lot of that stuff was written into the script. And then we had about 3 days of like scenic work where we like repainted the brick, or we're like rebuilding new tabletops, and like just those little touches, adding like the flowers on each table, and then where the bear is in the diner, that was a stage, and it was really I tried to like integrate every aspect of that room. Like it was like, okay, there's a back door. I need to write that in the script. There's this. I need to write that in. The one thing I could not make work was the stage. It was
Mm.
very much like got in the way of blocking. It got in the way of where we wanted to lay dolly track. Like, so we ended up removing the stage and then putting a bear there. And I also think that kind of added to, I don't know, the realism, I guess, because you see that a lot in these sort of middle of nowhere roadside diners. And uh but yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. We watched a lot of we pretty much watched everything that was shot at Four Aces, and it was my DP and I were like, okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, this looks cool. Okay, definitely don't do this. And I think at the end of the day, it really came. I think the reason it feels different is because we're really utilizing every inch of that place. Like when the knife salesman walks in, we cut to a wide where you can see the entire room, and you don't really see the entire room in any of these shows or movies. It's very much like you don't get a good sense of like the geography of the room. And so we were like, no, I want the audience to really know this space, and know exactly where each character is sitting, and so I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it. It's just, leaning into that.
Please support Matt's movie reviews on Patreon. Get access to exclusive content, request movie reviews and top 10 lists, and help support my work. Please click on the Patreon link in the description below. Speaking of knowing the space, when you have like a single room story, the majority of the film, as I said, is set in his diner. Sometimes it can be a tricky line to not have it kind of be like a stage play. You want to make sure that it is a cinematic effort, and that you definitely do achieve that with this movie. When it comes to your cast, though, do you have time to kind of rehearse with them? Do you have time for them to kind of like, for example, the booth settings where they sit? Is that
Uh-huh.
something that's in the script? Is that something that they choose to sit in while they get there? How does that all kind of work out?
So that is all very, very specific. I have like, I've been kind of showing this off a little bit, but it's very much planned. I think this is not video, right? This is just a podcast.
It's a little bit of both, but mostly podcast. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but I could show you sort of like this is like overheads of everything.
Hmm.
So the characters are very much exactly, you know, where it was planned. Sorry, what was the question again?
Just in regards to making sure that when you have a single room story, it doesn't come across as a stage play. You want to make it cinematic,
Oh,
and
oh,
from
totally.
and from that, when you like even like the way you have people placed in the different booths, is that something? Do you know which character's going to be in the booths like straight away, like in script,
Oh,
or is that something that comes
100%.
on the day? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That was all very much written into the script. I mean, when I found the location, I took pictures and I drew an overhead and then kind of wrote the script based on this specific overhead. So anytime I wrote a new character that comes to that door, I knew exactly what booth and what table they were sitting at and where they were facing. And that all plays into, the standoff, right? Because I had to get to a point where like basically everyone's back is turned
Mm.
towards bank robbers, except for Robert, who's asleep. And so it was very much like trying to stage everything very, very specifically. Um, but yeah, I watched, obviously, like I was inspired by a lot of these single location movies like Rope and Dial M for Murder and 12 Angry Men, which all they very much do feel like stage plays. So um, I don't know. I'm like, we definitely wanted to avoid that. I'm not sure exactly what it is that makes it feel not like a stage play. Maybe it's just like I kind of said earlier, it was really about just finding new places to put the camera every single time. So, every time we cut back to Emmett, it was like, or sorry, the knife salesman, it was really about, um, where haven't we shot him? Like, what's another interesting angle here? And like, a couple times we put the camera like behind the order window behind the counter, and it was just, yeah, trying to utilize every inch of that place.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. Speaking of utilizing every inch of that place, I love the way that your camera flows in the movie. There's a lot of times, even like the great scene with the Richard Brake monologue when he's talking to the knife salesman, and it
Oh
kind
yeah.
of goes from back and forth. Sometimes you have kind of like these tracking shot kind of situations as well. How much
Uh-huh.
discussions do you have with your cinematographer Mac Fiskin about where you want to go with the camera because you have such a contained space, but at the same time, for me, I think one of the big reasons why it works so well and it doesn't feel kind of play it at all is because just the way how the camera kind of flows everywhere. And when it kind of takes us for a journey, and you're in this kind of small ecosystem along with these other people. And I think it's really cool how you guys kind of pull that off.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that shot was really difficult. There's a lot of moving parts and it's all a oneer with a lot of emotion going on. So, but that was very, very specific. Like, that's all kind of written into our little Bible here. And like, there's notes in the shot list where it's like, when we're pushing in on Jocelyn, it's like as soon as she says not today, that's our mark. And so we need to be on her profile when she says this line, and then that's when we pan over and we track back. Like it was very calculated. so I think we ended up doing like 16 takes of that, maybe.
Hmm.
But and like it's a lot of takes, and it takes a long time, and it's a technical challenge, it's a challenge for the actors, but like at the end of the day, I think it's so much more worth it, because if you're just going to get conventional coverage, you're still going to spend way more time with all those different setups. And even if you did 2 or 3 takes getting conventional coverage, I think it's still going to take longer than really committing to a more interesting shot that conveys more of an emotion during that scene.
You mentioned a few Hitchcock classics in the movie, and something I think you really do incredibly well in this movie, which Hitchcock does as well in this movie, is you build the tension. There's an escalating tension that is there throughout the film, and you know there's going to be a release somewhere. You just don't know what yet. It's like this pressure cooker situation.
Yeah.
When you create that kind of suspense, that kind of tension, how much of that is in the script? How much of that is post? Because I know you're the editor of this film as well. So where does that kind of come in for you? Where's the seed for that tension? How it kind of bubbles up and gets to where it gets to in the movie?
Yeah, it's very much on the page. It's very much, I guess, more so on in the shot list, right? Of like
Yeah.
what we're showing the audience, what we're not showing the audience, and that very much comes from like that sort of like Hitchcock bomb under the table rule. It's like I kind of am always asking myself when building tension, what would Hitchcock do, right? There's so many different ways to play out tension. And a lot of the times the deciding factor is what we show the audience, what we don't show the audience. And in this case, I think like, the interesting thing for me was you're sort of letting the audience know that the fuel truck's never showing up. Uh,
Hmm.
from the very opening, the title sequence. Um, and the characters have no idea. So you're letting the audience in on something that the characters are have no idea. But yeah, it's really um in terms of tension building, I don't know. It's really just like deciding what shots you want to get, that is going to build the optimal tension for that scene.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. You have a fantastic cast in this movie. I mentioned Jim Cummings before,
Yeah.
Jocelyn O'Donoghue, Richard Brake. I think one of the great faces in movies today. I think he's just got a magnificent face on screen. Also, Gene Jones, fantastic. Sarah McCormick, also fantastic, and Vast of Night as well. Is it
Yeah.
true that you actually wrote letters to different members
Yes.
of the cast, and how was your batting average on this in regards to those letters as opposed to casting?
Uh, it was pretty great. I mean, as soon as I made that decision to start sending letters to like the actors that I really wanted, I got really lucky. It's funny, I haven't read those letters in a long time, and I just had dinner with uh, Nicholas Logan, who plays Travis, last
Hmm.
night. He pulled up the letter and we read it, and it was just cool. It was like, yeah, it actually worked. But yeah, I think because it was actually very genuine. Like I saw Nick in this movie, I Care a Lot, and I was like, that is Travis. Like, I need this person to play Travis. There's nobody else that is, you know, better suited to play this character. And that's the only movie I ever saw him in. And so I just expressed that in the letter. But yeah, I think maybe I wrote some letters to like, because there was a version of this movie that was like a way bigger, right? And we were like aiming for actors that had like quote unquote value that could trigger, like a $5 million budget. There was a version of that where I tried writing letters to some, bigger actors and just had no response. But like once I like started reaching out to like who I really wanted and who I saw fit from the beginning, I just got really lucky.
Last question here,
Mhm.
and this is more like a curiosity thing from my end more than anything else. The role of animals in this movie starts
Yeah.
and ends on a bird. You have a dog that can't hear. You talked about even like the bear and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
What for you do they symbolize for you in regards in this context? Is it something that symbolizes anything? Is it just something to I don't know. I don't know myself, but I was just taking notes about it because it was just something that really kind of just
Yeah,
stood out for
no.
me in the movie.
Yeah, I'm always writing animals into my. I mean, in my first short film, I had a rattlesnake, which was like took up 80% of the budget to get a live rattlesnake on there, but it's like a hill I was gonna die on. And then in my second short, I had wolves, which also was like the majority of the budget. I'm always writing animals into my stories, which is really dumb because it always eats up so much of your day. But yeah, the bird is definitely, symbolic for me. It's, you're opening and closing the movie on this thing that, you know, uh, for me, like represents a lot of the story. And it's like everyone can have their own interpretation of what that bird means, or it can just mean nothing. It
Mm,
doesn't really matter. But like, um, well, I've gotten a lot of comparisons to Blood Simple, like the last
mm.
shot in Blood Simple where he's staring at the plumbing, and it ends. Um, but yeah, it was a pain. I'll say this: it was a challenge to get that bird to stay on the gas pump for that fucking long. It worked out. That is all in camera, practical, real bird, no CG. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, it's a nice touch to a movie that I think is just terrific. And for everyone out there listening, May 10 in theaters. It's also available on digital last stop in Yuma County. But I really, really strongly suggest everyone go to a cinema, go to a theater near you and watch it on a big screen. Because not only do we have to support indie filmmakers and get this stuff back in cinemas, people back in cinemas to watch these films, but this is a gorgeously shot and really just crafted movie that needs to be seen in a cinema, I think. And
Oh, thank you
Francis, I
very
thank you
much.
so very much for your time today. Congrats with the movie. Hopefully, we talk again in the future, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, please, man. That was awesome. Thank you so much for all the kind words. That was awesome.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.